Uh, I see such love here, you guys. I'm telling you. Good to know, Mitch. I won't force myself to eat before golf. We'll just drink a cup of electrolytes before. Yeah. If you're not hungry, unlike sugar burners, people that have lived all their life burning sugar, the the advice to carb load before you exercise, before you run a marathon, ride a bike, do any physical activity to get energy is totally bogus and totally unnecessary. Now, if you're a sugar burner, yes, you might need to do that because our body has two ways to store energy. Here comes a lecture, guys. Two ways to store energy. We store it as fat in our fat cells, and we store it as glycogen in our muscles and our liver. Glycogen is stored sugar. Of course, what in our fat cells is stored fat. Most of us have enough fat on our body to live for months, but none of us have any more than 24 hours worth of stored sugar. Sugar is a substitute emergency survival fuel that's designed to be metabolized rapidly and used when the fat isn't available. If everything in your body's working right, you can switch back and forth from sugar burning to fat burning like a hybrid car, like a Prius does. But when you, like so many of us, when we've abused the sugar, we've broken the controlling mechanisms. We become insulin resistant. The insulin can't do its job. So what happens is we become more and more dependent on sugar. Our brain panics when we get low in sugar, even though we may be carrying around 300 pounds of fat on our bodies, which we should be able to burn because our metabolism and our pathways are so screwed up and our insulin levels and hormones are so out of balance. Those fat cells won't let go of that fat. So the minute you start running low on sugar, you're in panic, starving to death mode, which can't happen when you're burning, when you're controlling switch that switches you back and forth between sugar and fat, depending on the situation. When that's all working, and after it's been working for a long enough period of time, your brain finally learns nothing to panic about. If we happen to run a little low on sugar, we'll just burn fat. That's what we're supposed to be burning anyway. In fact, we can live without eating any sugar. We know that as carnivores. The minimum daily requirement for carbohydrates is 0. We have cells in our body, cells in our brain, our red blood cells, certain muscle functions that need glucose, and we have a liver that manufactures glucose through gluconeogenesis. And we can make more than enough glucose to meet all the needs of our body without having to resort to eating 1 gram of sugar ever. And I have not, other than a tiny little bit of carbs that come in eggs and in meat, and it has to come in animal products because the muscle meat has glycogen stored in it. So we're eating that glycogen, a small amount, less than insignificant, not even enough to show up as 1 gram of carbs per serving on the labels. But yeah, I probably may get 3, 4, maybe 5 grams of carbs a day from the meat I eat. It's insignificant. It's essentially 0. And because my metabolism has healed and I no longer panic when my sugar gets low, my insulin never spikes, my sugar never spikes, and my body can take any fuel it needs out of my fat cells at any time, even if I haven't eaten for 3 days. And this is the way it's supposed to be, because when our ancestors went out on a hunt, when they went on a hunt, they didn't always come back with food. Fasting was not just something they did, it was something they had to do. There was no food. Our whole physiology developed to be able to consider those days without food as just run-of-the-mill, ordinary, everyday occurrences, and we came up with the mechanisms to cope with that. In fact, people who fast intentionally today, once they've become fat adapted, as long as they're over the sugar burning crap, will tell you that if anything, their hunger goes away the longer they get into a fast. The sharper their brain becomes. And in a lot of cases, the more energy they have and the more strength they seem to get because they're burning that fat that they have stored in their body. And that was necessary back in the old days. It was something that our ancestors had to do. The hunt failed. They needed to be stronger for the next hunt, faster, quicker, more alert. And if that hunt failed, they had to continue to get stronger and faster. And that's how it works. And people who fast for 3, 4, 5 days will tell you that the further they get into the fast, maybe they might feel a little weird, but they're certainly not dying. They are basically getting in better and better shape to have a better chance to succeed in the hunt and actually be able to get the meat, which is the real food, and the fat for us to eat. And yes, the sugar can hold you over a little, but don't forget, back in those days, most of the time there was no sugar. Fruits were seasonal, a couple, 3 weeks a year. There were some grubby tubers and things growing in the ground that had some carbs in them. Nothing like we have today. We're never more than 100 feet from a metric ton of sugar in our society. Even me, I could get to a Wawa with less than a half-mile walk, and we all know how much sugar is in one of those big convenience stores. So we've screwed ourselves up completely, and we as carnivores are as close after you've been on it for a while. And when I say a while, I'm talking maybe a year, 2 years. I'm just coming up a few weeks shy of 2 years being pure carnivore. And I still am improving, and I still see changes and improvements in the way I feel and in the way a lot of my things that I thought were broken, like my entire digestive system, just keep improving and working better and better. And my thinking is, I think, the clearest it's ever been in my entire life. And at my age, I'm supposed to be drooling in a nursing home by now, according to the average standards. At any rate, I was answering a question there, was talking about sugar. I get off on these things and I go off on a trip and forget where I started sometimes. Good to know, Mitch. I forced myself to eat. Yeah, we were talking to Golf Addict about why he doesn't have to worry about it. You could forget to eat, play 36 holes, and not even eat afterwards, and you'd probably still be okay. It's amazing. It will amaze you as you become fat adapted just exactly how little you will think about, crave, or worry about where your next meal's coming from. It's the most amazing thing in the world. And nobody believes it just hearing about it. The only time I ever really started to believe it was when it started to happen to me. And then today there's still people telling me, you know, the old don't believe your lying eyes. There's people telling me, well, you may think it's happening to you, but it really isn't. You're really killing yourself because your cholesterol's so high and you're getting cancer and you're getting heart disease and all this other stuff. And I go, no, I'm not. I've never felt better in my life. And I know why I feel good. See, just taking somebody's word for it is one thing. But logically, step by step, going through all of the reality and the reasons why this is the way our species needs to live. And in spite of the fact that in the last few hundred years especially, we have screwed the pooch, we can get back to it and it still works. And it's just a simple matter of whether you're malnourished or not. Food is the most important thing that we do for ourselves, and some exercise, but exercise even pales in comparison compared to nutrition. We are a machine. It needs the right fuel. You can't fill your car with water and expect it to run. I don't care what somebody tells you. It doesn't work. You can't take a gasoline car and fill it with diesel fuel. It's the wrong fuel. If you're going to have diesel fuel in your tank, you better have a diesel engine under the hood that knows what to do with that diesel fuel. If you're going to stuff your face full of plants and landscaping, you better have the machinery that a cow has. You better have multi-chambered stomachs and hind guts like and the hind gut like a gorilla has to ferment all of that cellulose that you're eating, to turn it into short-chain fatty acids so that you can live on it. We don't have that machinery anymore. We used to. We have vestigial organs and remains of things we used to have back when our ancestors had them. We have a tailbone, but we have no tail anymore. We evolved out of the need for a tail. We have an appendix where that hindgut used to connect back in the day when we had to be able to deal with these plants and have the bacteria in our guts to ferment these particular types of non-animal food. But after millions of years of adapting to eating meat and animal fat, our mechanisms adapted and changed. We got rid of the stuff we didn't need anymore because all that stuff took energy, which our new big growing brains needed instead. So here we are today with a big enough brain to completely screw ourselves with propaganda and misinformation. Basically, we're so smart, we're outsmarting ourselves. It's time for us to start, looking back and saying, what did the cavemen do? How did the cavemen do this? We're not any different than them. We may think we're different. We may know a lot of shit that they didn't know. But if you opened up a caveman cell, ran a DNA analysis on his DNA from 40,000 years ago, you'd find it was damn near identical to ours. None of that stuff has changed. None of that stuff that controls the basic physiology of the animal has changed. We've adapted to different things as we travel around the world, live in different climates, adapt to different food sources, but our base programming is still the same as it was of that caveman who lived 40,000 years ago. And the closer we get to eating like they did, to mimicking their lifestyle, which wasn't really much of a style at all, but it was the way they lived, the more that we do that, the healthier we're going to be. We're taking care of our machinery like most people take care of their cars if they want them to last. And if you abuse your car and you drive it 100,000 miles and don't change the oil, it's going to blow up on you. Here I go again. Damn. With that, my friends, take the rest of the day off and eat meat.